Today is October 29th, 2014 at Sunset Elementary in Craig, Colorado. This is William Jacobs. He was born on October 15th, 1934 in Williams, Arizona.
Okay, thank you.
Well, can you tell me what branch you were in?
Tell me what branch I was in? The Navy, United States Navy.
And what rank were you in? Where did you serve?
I served on an aircraft carrier for most all the time I was in there. Made 3 trips to Korea on the aircraft carrier. And I went in when I was 17 years old, so I was quite young, and I had a lot of learning to do. I learned a lot.
Can you tell us why you joined the Navy?
Well, it was kind of a family tradition. I had a brother in the Navy. I had uncles that served in the Navy. Just one of those things that I just followed suit because they were in the Navy. I thought it was the right place for me. I joined the Navy.
Can you tell us about your first days in the Navy?
The first days in the Navy make you wonder why you joined the Navy. They take you in, they transport you to the installation where you're going to do all your training. They cut off most of your hair, they do dental work on you. It's quite late at night by the time you get through, and I'm not saying this to scare you out of it, it's just the way it is. They prepare you so that the next morning when you do get up, you're able to move forward. There's nothing to interfere with it, such as dental work, eyeglass work, haircuts, that type of stuff. So they just bring you in there, they put you in, and from the minute you get in there, you're totally supervised by usually what's the rank of a chief. And he stays there in the dorm with you, and you spend 6 weeks of training, intense military training, plus the book learning. So it's very intense. It's at the time you get out of there, you really appreciate the fact that you finished the training.
Okay, Dad.
Can you tell us how you joined the Navy?
I graduated from high school at 17. I went to the biggest city close to me was Phoenix, Arizona. I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I went in and said I wanted to join, and they said, you have to have your parents' signature because you're not 18 years of age yet. So I called my father. He came down and signed for me so I could go in. And 2 weeks later, I was in boot camp in San Diego, California.
Where did you live on the ship?
Well, on the ship, most of the people lived in a very large dorm-type room with lots of bunks. The bunks actually kind of just folded up against one another during the day. But I was in charge of the ship's armory, so therefore there were only 3 bunks down in there. So there were the 3 individuals who were in charge and responsible got to stay in the ship's armory. You didn't have to sleep in there with 100 other guys. You got your own place right there. The mess hall was directly above there, so that when it was time to eat and go do that type of a thing, you just went up the ladder and went into the mess hall up top up there.
Can you tell us about boot camp?
I'm sorry, son, what?
Can you tell us about boot camp?
Boot camp is very intense, as I said. They train. You do book work. You do that little deal right there, classroom rules. That's some of the things, if you don't already know them, you learn them in boot camp. Exactly what's on there is what they try to teach you. And then they take you and do the book learning. Then they identify where, in anything, whether it's Air Force, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, whatever, they identify what you would be the best at to participate and to give to the ship you're on or to the base you're on or whatever like that. So consequently, you do that. You do physical work. You play basketball. You do a lot of different things like that. But most of it's a learning curve. You march everywhere you go. You're allowed 30 minutes for lunch, and if you don't make it in that 30 minutes, you don't get lunch. In other words, what they're trying to do is make you a cohesive group that supports one another and make sure that your buddy, your friend, your pal, or whoever it is, gets to wherever they're supposed to be at the time they're supposed to be there. And you wash your clothes. They have a great big concrete deal with water running, and you take what's called a GI brush, about so big, and you go out there and you clean your clothes every day and hang them to dry. but you learn to be self-sufficient, but you also learn to take care of your other people.
What did it feel like to be in the Navy?
Many different feelings. There's excitement, there's joy, there's frustration, there's why did I do this? It's just the same as the everyday life, I guess you'd call it. But as you're doing this, you're aimed in a certain direction, and they're making sure you channel so that when you get here, you're going to be a group that can support one another and can do what you've learned to do in there and to support the United States of America. So it's pretty easy once they get you channeled in. The farther, it's 6 weeks of this. You get up in the dark and you go to bed in the dark. You eat exactly when they tell you. You read exactly when they tell you. You march to every place there is. And I'm not saying this to make it sound like it's bad. It's not bad. Because that's what it takes, just like with your teacher here. She's put you in a group and she's taught all of you. I sit here, do this, do that, do that. It's the same thing. By the end of the year, you come together, you automatically do these things, and you don't even have to be told. So that's basically the way boot camp is, too.
Can you tell us about a couple of your most memorable?
I'm sorry, I didn't put in my hearing aids. What was it again?
Can you tell us about a couple of your most memorable experiences?
Wow. I'll tell you one, that the flag of the United States of America, always important to all of us. We always respect it, we salute it, we do what we're supposed to. But when you're overseas on a ship in the ocean, and every morning they raise that flag, and they play the national anthem on it, it gets you right here. Because you're out there representing the United States of America in order to help others and to make sure that your country doesn't get overrun by enemies. And it really, really gets to you inside of here. And it didn't until I was there and did that. One of the other things that's so important and memorable would be mail call. The mail from, of course, would be from my wife. The mail was sent to a post office box in San Francisco. There it was sorted, and then it was sent out to the ships. So it was sometimes 2 to 3 weeks before you got a letter that was written to you. But what happened many, many, many times, when I received my wife's letters and she received mine, we had written about the same things, even though we were thousands of miles apart. We'd actually written about some of the same things. I had answered questions she had already asked, but I didn't have that letter for 3 weeks. So consequently, that feeling of joy and excitement and to be connected back with your family is really important.
Can you tell us, are you allowed to quit the Navy?
Not really. Once you sign up for, I signed up for what's called a kiddie cruise. In other words, 4 years would be a normal time. Well, I was under 18 years of age, so I only had to serve 3 years and 7 months in the Navy. And then you're discharged. But at the time I was discharged, you went into the reserve, the Naval Reserve, for another full 4 years. So you had an eight-year obligation, but the last 4 of it you were home doing your whatever you do at home and all that. But if they needed you, they'd call you back up again.
Did you get any medals?
Yes, I got 7 medals. I brought with me today a medal that later, with the Teachers Commission, I'll show to you. But it's not a medal issued by the United States of America. It's a medal that's issued by the Korean government to thank all of those who served and in the military zone and tried to make things better for them, because they were being run out by the communist Chinese who were trying to annihilate all of them. So what they did, they sent to me in 2010, they sent a thank you letter. They sent it to everybody who served in the military zone. In other words, who was in on the fighting and the stuff to freedom and everything. Our medals are similar to this. I did not bring any of them. That, and you're welcome to pass that amongst yourselves. There's a medal there and the Korean PUC, Presidential Unit Citation Deal. But our medals are similar to that. They were for the different areas that you were in, the different war zones you were in, and different stuff like that. So, yes, you even got a good conduct medal, which all of you will get after this program. How's that?
Can you tell us what your job was?
I was what's called a gunner's mate, and the ship's armory is the the central location to, and I'll have to show you on the pictures how we did this, but you bring the munitions aboard, the bombs, the bullets, the rockets, everything that's gonna be used by the military when they go to the enemy and strike them. So consequently, you brought all that aboard and stored it, and then it had to be issued back out as the planes flew 24 hours a day. In other words, there'd be planes in the air 24 hours a day, so you had to arm them, you had to put the bombs on them, the rockets on them, the military stuff that they would need. So consequently, by the time you got all of this done and everything, the 24-hour clock had run, the people had done their job, the bombs and the stuff that you bring aboard were stored, they had to be taken up to what was called a hangar deck. They were not mounted on the plane until that plane went on the flight deck and ready to take off. And they were not armed, which means putting the fuse in there that would make them detonate when they hit or whatever. They weren't armed until they were ready to take off. And when they did take off, and if something happened that they couldn't drop their bombs, and they came back to the ship, a lot of times they just had to bail out and let that plane go in the ocean because of the danger of having 8 or 10 bombs on a wing stretched out there. When they hit that deck, they could have come off and blown up. So consequently, you were busy either rearming, disarming, mounting, or whatever. And there are pictures in the book that show the size of the bombs, show some of that, show how we brought it aboard from another ship, how we transferred the stuff across. So you'll be able to ask some questions on that too.
What was the food like?
Well, there's pictures in there also. I'm going to use a scrambled egg as an idea of what they do or don't do. They have pots that are that big and that big around, and they actually put hundreds of eggs in those and cook them and scramble them. So the taste isn't that great because it's such a volume of food, but it was a good variety. And on that aircraft carrier, there were 3,000 men. At that time, women were not allowed to be on the ships. They are now. But there was 3,000 men aboard. They cooked 10,000 meals a day. 10,000. Now that's a bunch of eggs, let me tell you right now. So consequently, the food, it was okay, and it was good food and everything like that, but it wasn't like Mom's cooking, let's put it that way, okay?